The University of Alabama changes students' lives by giving them knowledge and inspiring them to do their best. One educator here is remembered for challenging his students and colleagues to a very high standard.
I would hope that every day when a person gets up, the first thing they say in the morning is, how is my community and how is my state going to be better as a result of me getting out of bed today? And then at night, before they go to bed, what did I do today to improve society?
Dr. John L. Blackburn facilitated the peaceful integration of the University of Alabama by empowering his students to take part in changing history. His work revolutionized the relationship between educational institutions and their students and had national impact. He inspired his students to work throughout their lives for positive change in their communities, and his vision continues to inspire today through the University of Alabama's Blackburn Institute. John Leslie Blackburn was a positive influence on all who knew him. His close associates called him John L.
When I was a student at the university from 60 to 64, and then I went back for a master's in 65, 66, there were three leaders that I was aware of. Frank Rose was the president of the university, a powerful, magnificent man and personality. Coach Brown, of course, was there, and his legacy speaks well for what he accomplished and how he went about accomplishing it. And of course, John Blackburn.
But he was always known as Johnny, and he said, I don't want to be called Johnny forever, So I said, well, let's just say John L. then. And so I started calling him John L. all the time, and everybody else started, that's how we got it.
I was Coach Bryant's cheerleader sponsor for 10 years, and that same charisma that fills a room, John L. had that.
He had a gravelly voice that was very distinctive and a very commanding presence.
His leadership style was powerful, it was dynamic.
He would ask his staff, what have you done today for the university? And so everyone knew to be on their toes.
Generally speaking, he would begin with his question, what have you done today for the university and for the state? And so then it was, I jumped out of my chair and Dr. Blackburn, please come in.
You ended up loving the man who you had feared when you first met him.
I think when you look at the impact that he had nationally through professional organizations, the work that he did with NASPA, National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, people look to Dean Blackburn and the University of Alabama for leadership.
John L. was not only a scholar, he believed in the next generation and taught student affairs professionals throughout the Southeast and ultimately throughout the nation to listen to students, to count on them as partners in higher education governance, and to research that in ways that we could document the learning and growth.
In the past, they were relegated strictly to the classroom as recipients of knowledge. They were now active participants in their own education, and they are active participants in social change.
He is the individual who ushered in a new day.
The Malone Hood Plaza on the University of Alabama campus honors the brave students who pioneered integration here. Autherine Lucy was admitted in 1956, but riots broke out and her time on campus was short-lived. Backed by the power of the federal government, Vivian Malone and James Hood were admitted in 1963, despite objections from Alabama's governor. That their admission did not lead to riots on campus was largely due to the work of John L. Blackburn.
Of course, George Wallace was governor and was making his segregation speeches and talking about how we'd never integrate.
Months before, as the University of Mississippi admitted their first black student, riots resulted in 2 deaths and over 200 people with injuries. 30,000 U.S. troops were deployed to maintain order. The University of Alabama wanted to avoid violence, and Blackburn made that possible by helping student leaders understand the best possible outcome for everyone involved.
I received a telephone invitation to come to Dr. Blackburn's house.
he encouraged us to look at that problem from a different perspective. And of course, Wallace stood in the schoolhouse door. I watched that from the law library.
Governor Wallace made good on a campaign promise by standing in the door, but was removed by National Guard troops under the command of President John Kennedy. Blackburn student leaders convinced their peers to stay away from the showdown at Foster Auditorium. The only students near the media circus were those empowered by Blackburn to help maintain order. Don Siegel was standing near Denny Chimes.
That night, after the successful integration of the university, President John Kennedy went on the air with a nationwide address. He says, "This integration of the University of Alabama on a peaceful basis would not have been possible without the students at the University of Alabama who stood tall and shouldered their responsibility."
He wanted students to see that they had the ability to create change. They didn't have to wait till they graduated. They were social actors in the moment. They were able to make change in the moment. And at a time when there was tremendous social change in the United States, here at the University of Alabama, he empowered students to be part of that change.
It was scary for them to just stand up, to do that, to be able to say those things in the atmosphere that was Alabama in those years.
The Blackburn leadership influence was born out of the crucible of the integration fire.
Blackburn's life of service and inspiration of others led directly to the formation of a unique organization at the University of Alabama.
One day when he dropped by with his question of what have you done today, I said, "You know, John L., we'd like to honor you as you retire."
John L. loved people and he loved students, and I think it was in his bones, in his DNA, that he wanted to work with students and make them all that they can be. But he also, and most educators, you can say that about them, but he also loved this state. And when it came time, when he came back to Tuscaloosa, and he and Gloria chose to retire there, he wanted to do something for the university and for the state.
About 2 or 3 weeks later, he reappeared, briefcase in hand, and "What have you done today for the university?" And I jumped from my desk and I said, "Okay, so what do you think?"
He was successful and accomplished, but he chose to care about a greater good. He chose to care about the needs of others.
I don't want to have my name linked with the past. Rather, I'd like to have my name linked to the future. And what I'd like to see us do is invest in the next generation of students that will make a difference not only in this state but beyond.
During the integration of the university, it was a very troubling, scary, perhaps potentially violent time. And he did empower and lift up students and help them understand that they could make a difference and change the course of history.
And I think he saw students as agents of change, and he saw a need for change in our state. So he married the two.
We ought to be producing student leaders that would make change. So the Blackburn Institute is taking some student leaders and trying to put them through some special experiences and preparing them to go out and be change agents in our society.
It gives you agency, it gives you license, it tells you that you are empowered from this day forward to be a change agent in your communities, in your industries, and whatever issues that feel particularly important to you.
Once he was involved with the Blackburn Institute, he still constantly had that mindset of it's about helping others. It's about helping the state of Alabama get better. It's about helping, this country be better in some kind of way.
Gloria is proud of him. I know Holly is proud of him. The students who knew him understand very clearly what he wanted, and I hope they think about his question, what have you done today to make a difference? What have you done for the state today?
To me, the legacy of John L. and the Blackburn Institute will live in what the students that come through the Institute accomplish as they attend the university, leave the university, and go on in their careers.
The mission of the Blackburn Institute is to develop a network of diverse leaders who understand the challenges facing the state of Alabama and the nation, and who are committed to serving as agents of positive change. The organization is guided by 4 overarching values: networking through the generations, facilitating a diversity of opinion, being called to action, and instilling a lifetime commitment. The Blackburn Institute provides opportunities for students and fellows to engage in dialogue and learn from advisory board members, alumni, faculty, community leaders, scholars, and political leaders.
The Blackburn Institute is highly selective. When it comes to the selection process for our students, they first go through an essay application, group interviews, individual interviews. So it's a rigorous process to become part of the Institute.
My senior year of high school, I was looking at ways I could get involved on campus at the university. So I was looking on the websites and different things, looking at the different student organizations available. And I kind of found out about the Blackburn Institute through the online websites and things like that. And I knew that I really wanted to be a part of it because it just sounded so special.
We're getting not just all attorneys and not just all poli-sci and not this and not that and not kids who know each other, but we're getting a select group of students who honestly want to be in the Blackburn Institute.
I didn't get in that first year, so back to the drawing board I went.
The folks who have taken the time to get involved with the Institute get turned on, get excited about it, because they know that the Institute picks the best and the brightest on campus who are future leaders, and they have an opportunity to shape and mold and nurture those students.
Well, having been a student affairs professional, he wanted it to not just be yet another organization. He wanted us to be explicit in our learning outcomes and objectives for the students. He wanted it to be a very high honor to be selected. But better than that, we wanted it to be a lifelong commitment. And in doing so, we created a board of advisors, many of whom ushered in change in the 60s.
John Blackburn pretty well outlined what he thought it should be and handpicked the initial group that I guess you'd call the first board of directors.
I think it's really neat how the Blackburn Institute was set up. It was very deliberate. If you look at it, the advisory board component with the fellows program, and that's so that the leaders of the state can connect with the leaders of the future.
We need to inspire these young people, and they definitely inspire us.
What makes the Blackburn Institute special, and I've clearly benefited from this, is that they put us in the arena with change makers, like the Siegels, like the Saxons, like Dr. Tom Strong, and their investment in me has pushed me to help others throughout my career, and also now to turn around and help be that mentor, help be that guidance to someone else.
The Blackburn Institute provides opportunities for students to examine multiple perspectives of issues impacting their communities. This is the first step in creating opportunities for open dialogue focused on addressing issues.
You think you have everyone at the table and everyone is excited and everyone is encouraged. And John Blackburn is that man who stood up and said, hey, this is great that we're all on the same page, but who's not here? And how do we get them here? And what would they say?
Most people think of diversity as in terms involving race or different elements of our society. But we're talking about diversity of ideas and how you could take people that have different ideas and get them to work together for some common good.
We have students who are very conservative and some who are very progressive, but they honestly can learn to listen to each other and have learned to listen to each other and not just try to think about what I want to say next.
It's not making a person change their ideas, but being able to get them so that they can accommodate other people's ideas and work together.
He also wanted them to be exposed to ideas that were not necessarily something that they hear every day in school. And so he had an idea of having speakers come and talk to them. And once they came and talked to them, then expose those kids to that particular person for certain period of time. We could ask them questions one-on-one.
As a young member of the Blackburn Institute, you would come in, freshman or sophomore or whatever it may be, and you would get to go to symposium, and it just seemed like the entire state was just right there at your fingertips. You'd have everyone from chief of staff to the governor, to a state senator, to someone who ran a nonprofit, head of YWCA. I mean, you just had all the major players in one room.
It's about giving these kids an opportunity to be in the room with people they don't agree with, that they don't have common ground with, that they can't see themselves being friends with or even talking to.
And I think having that diversity in Blackburn just shows people that there are a lot of us out there and we all have something to offer and we're all worth knowing.
And all of a sudden, the light comes on and they realize that they're really all one human being. We're all in the same boat. And to be able to listen to somebody with an open heart and an open mind, still may not agree, but you can have respect and you can have honest dialogue.
Integral to the Blackburn student experience are opportunities to travel throughout the state of Alabama to engage with community leaders, see the cultural, demographic, historical, and topographical diversity of the state, and understand the challenges and triumphs of communities.
We meet with the community organizers, the political leaders, we meet with the everyday citizens. And it just definitely gives you more insight as pertains to what issues that city is facing, what are some of the positive things that are taking place there, what are some of the things they're working on.
The Institute it serves as a training ground to bring those collective opinions together in a way that's civil, that is respectful of both sides, of both opinions, and focused on being action-oriented.
The Blackburn Institute inspires active citizenship as individuals and collectively by developing and implementing strategic initiatives to create change for the common good.
No matter who you are, where you're from, you have value and you bring that to the table, but it's not enough just to have it. John Blackburn wanted you to use it. It was a call to action.
He would come to them as students and say, what are you going to do that's going to make a difference in Alabama today? How is Alabama going to be different because you rolled out of bed? That sort of thing. And that drives me wherever I am.
Don't just be a member of something. Get out. You're called to action. And that's what the Blackburn Institute was about.
You're an agent of change. And so, as such, you have an obligation to do so, to not let it sit, but to advance the issues that are important to you, and to do so in a way that's conscious and considerate of the differing opinions.
He was always getting us as students to think about improving things, not focused on yesterday and not focused on tomorrow, but do something today to make the situation that you're in better.
Some of the folks have decided they don't want to wait until they're 45 or 50 in the legislature or president of a bank, and they want to make an impact now. So the Daniel Scholars Program, some of them have started doing things of a grassroots service nature in Tuscaloosa.
I was in a group that worked to create the Tuscaloosa's first free health clinic in the western area of Tuscaloosa. It's staffed by pre-medical students at UA, as well as a medical doctor from the campus, and just kind of directed by Blackburn students. Our group saw a need in the western area of Tuscaloosa for health care. Many members in that community don't have access to health care, and they have high diabetes rates. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed that issue by having a free clinic. We had the Greener Tire Project, which will work to make recycling more prevalent on game days. These actions and these kind of examples are what Blackburn kind of stands for, just to make that difference, make that change, and work to better someone else's life.
The Blackburn Institute instills a lifetime commitment by providing a rich collegiate experience so that upon graduation, fellows are encouraged not only to continue to foster relationships with the Institute and its members, but also to uphold the ideals of the Institute in their daily lives.
We want students to gain skills while they're here at Alabama and integrate those with their academic learning, integrate those with their co-curricular activities in ways that when they leave the institution, whether they choose to stay in the state of Alabama or not, they're going to have a positive impact here.
The Blackburn Institute is special in that it is, to me, a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of considering others around you, issues, challenges of your day, and it's an approach that you take to thinking about those issues, addressing those issues, and putting to action solutions that have come from a variety of different places, individuals, and opinions.
Those principles, those things that we were taught in Blackburn about ethical leadership and truly caring about making a positive impact really wherever you are, that basically we're able to do that wherever we go.
There's nearly not a day that passes that I don't utilize some skill or draw on some experience that I've had because of the Blackburn Institute.
You know, for me, that's meant a career in the nonprofit world, in the public sector. For other people in the Institute, it's meant lots of different things, but we were always supposed to look for those structural issues or challenges facing our communities and do the best we could in our own capacities to make those things better.
My dad and a lot of other people thought that I would go to Wall Street, go to work at a bank, and that just wasn't something I was passionate about. And so Dr. Blackburn encouraged us to follow our passions and to do things outside of the status quo. And that definitely drove me to teaching first grade in inner city Atlanta, and that decision right there has made all the difference in my career.
I think as the generations of Blackburn fellows, have moved into the state and the nation in different spots, I mean, you've created a huge network of opportunities for the new students, a huge network of opportunities for fellows themselves. I mean, when someone calls you, and I do get emails from people who were fellows or students, and the moment they tell you they're a Blackburn fellow, and it's a person of character, integrity, they're good people.
People that I work alongside professionally, people that I've worked at cross purposes with professionally, that I met in college or in the Blackburn Institute, I know they're coming from a good place.
You might not agree on everything, or your ideology might not be the same, but it's about being able to come together, have dialogue, and know that you're all trying to do what you feel like is best for the state.
And John L. really encouraged us to see the potential of this that could be really change agents within the state, but also a network of progressives, conservatives, a network of politicians and nurses that could really make a difference by not only knowing one another, but sharpening one another with great information and with great principles.
Through dialogue and through interacting with people who may not look like you or sound like you or have the same experiences as you, we can hopefully come to some favorable middle ground that really does move our state forward and help the citizens, not just a certain subset of our citizens, but everybody.
Well, 20 years out, I would say that the impact is now documentable, and it's important for us to know that the alumni not only return for friendship, but that the network is in fact making a difference throughout the state as well as in Washington, D.C.
The Blackburn Institute is developing an intergenerational community of ethical leaders who collaboratively accomplish good and noble ends by embracing transcending values that esteem each citizen and creating a sense of oneness where individuals set aside personal gain for the common good.
There's so much you can do through Blackburn, there's so much you can gain from Blackburn, and so much you can put into Blackburn as well. It's just a lot of leadership development, growth as a person, and just kind of finding your voice, finding your place on campus, in the state, even in the world, and just knowing that wherever you go, you are going to be a change agent and you're going to work to make a change.
I think you'd be extremely proud, and to just see that it's It survived, it made it. It's 20 years and here we are, and you're sitting here and you're asking me if my father would be happy and pleased with where it is, and I think he'd be super excited.
It was things that he was hope would happen. He would be shocked if he really would.
The Blackburn Institute doesn't have a set agenda or a set of issues that it's pushing, and that's part of the genius of it. We instead want to instill in students a structural understanding of the foundational kind of issues that plague Alabama and where we stand in the rank of states.
The Institute is a lifetime commitment. We have an obligation to fulfilling the responsibility that we've been given.
I think there are probably 400 or 500 of those people who graduated from the Blackburn Institute now, maybe even more.
So we have to engage as citizens in every sector to lift everyone up and have the mindset that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so it's not about reaching down to lift people up, but it's about empowering others so that they can lift themselves up.
We need generations of people who think like John Blackburn, generations of people who don't just sit around and wait for action to happen to them, but people who take things by their reins and make it happen themselves.
John L. was always a power for good, and he had a favorite saying that, "What have you done to help the state of Alabama today?" And you thought about that each day as to what can I do to make Alabama better? And John L. Blackburn stood for that.
There is no reason that you right now can't affect change. And as more and more Blackburn Fellows get out into the community and get out into leadership positions, I know that change will happen to the state.